Um, how's everything? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Nice to speak to you again. It's been a long time, Willa.
It's been way too long now. Like we were just mentioning before, that you and I go back at least a decade at this point,
Hmm.
if not two. Wanted to ask you some questions about what's going on today. Um, First of all, I'm sure you're familiar with the protests that are going on in Borough Park, in Williamsburg, and throughout the Orthodox world about Cuomo and his quote unquote anti-Semitic edicts against the Jewish community and about coronavirus regulations. Do you think that the Jewish community in New York is being targeted right now?
No. Now, I don't live in New York, but I
I
think
know.
that any group, whether it be the Italians or Portuguese, Catholics, whoever, who would take such an approach, in my opinion, a science-based approach, but someone else nowadays could say that their opinion is also science-based because it's a science that you happen to believe in, that challenges the status quo is going to be shut down. So I don't think Jews are being targeted because they happen to be Jewish. They're being targeted because they're being outspoken.
Most of the protests are being run by, one or two people. Um,
Sure, Heshi Tishler.
Heshi Tischler, Kalman Yeager. Uh, do you think that the backlash against them, some people are calling them road femme, that they're, you know, um, trying to pursue other people to kill them, that they're uh, really causing a desecration of God's name in public? Do you think that that's a warranted criticism of these people?
Well, I don't consider that a desecration of God's name. You mean in terms of wanting their parks open, this and that. I'm totally against people using anything that have to do with the Holocaust. And I've seen it many times in Mea Sharim, right? When the police would run in, they'll be like, Nazi this, Nazi that. I am also anti-mask and I support their cause. But I don't like when people bring in religion and say that they're being targeted just because they happen to be Jewish. It's silly. It does
Do
get a
you
lot of
feel,
attention.
do
But
you
I
feel you've
think
been targeted for being anti-mask?
I live in South Florida, but yeah, for sure. You can't even go shopping without wearing a mask. And if you don't own a mask, you, I guess, have to borrow a mask just to go into a store to buy your own mask. It's pretty ridiculous with something that there's really a 99% survival rate as of today. And those who have pre-existing conditions, those people should protect themselves. But I think it's gone too far. My kid, he has to wear a mask when, I mean, to date, around 2 or 3 kids have died because of this in America. And it's because they had pre-existing conditions. You know, as a matter of fact, more kids die today because of the flu than because of COVID-19. I'm pretty sure you acknowledge this, right? That especially with children, it's a bit ridiculous. While places like Sweden that never shut down to begin with have already achieved herd immunity. In the last week, no one has died in Sweden. That was really the canary in the coal mine for all of us who thought this was ridiculous to begin with. And we have something to point to. And the scientific community that aligns itself with the left is very angry at Sweden because of their experiment. But they came out on top. They were right. We were wrong. And places like New York and California with Gavin Newsom, not only are they wrong, now they're trying to destroy the Trump economy. And the idea is that they're going to ease up on these restrictions after the election. Not to mention that people like Cuomo have blood in their hands for forcing nursing homes to accept people who tested positive for COVID-19. None of this is mentioned, but I think this is all tied to the left's control of the media and universities and basically all outlets of information outside of talk radio.
As far as the Jews are concerned, all Cuomo really had to say at the time was houses of worship are closed, or we're going to just close everything in South Brooklyn. No, he specifically said we're going after the synagogues, where he called out the Orthodox community a couple times. Do you think that that's just based on bad science, or that there's something behind that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Orthodox community is really the only community, the main community, not under the thumb of the political infrastructure of New York. They're right wing. They don't benefit Cuomo in any way. And this is why he doesn't care if they get upset or not. Heshi is actually a friend of mine, well, at least on Facebook. We've chatted before, right? I mean, he seems like a decent guy. He is sort of an instigator, but I think right now he's doing a good thing. Someone has to do it. I mean, it's clearly great for his show. Sometimes it really doesn't matter why someone does good as long as they're doing good. I'm not a fan of his style, but he's right this time. And is he still in jail?
No.
Okay.
He was he was released soon after he was locked up.
Really, Orthodox Jews have outgrown New York. That government doesn't represent them anymore. It really behooves them to move to places like perhaps South Florida or even reconquer the
my next
South.
question. Do you see Florida as the future for the Orthodox community?
I think South Florida is number 2 in terms of a population. First is New York, then Florida, and I think Chicago and LA are tied. But for sure, I mean, South Florida is predominantly red with all the Cubans and the Venezuelans down here. And I think it's a better fit. They're going to have to cut ties with New York, as hard as that may be.
That's a really big statement. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate. You're talking millions of people.
Well, they come every year. They're snowbirds. Now, the problem with the majority of Jews who come to South Florida is that they've already destroyed New York politically. So now they bring their values to Florida, left-wing values. What they're going to do is destroy Florida just like they destroyed New York and California. It seems like they don't learn. South Florida is a mixture of the right and the left, but it seems that this is a future home for Jews, for Orthodox Jews. If you're on the left, you'll be at home here as well. So we got Debbie Wasserman Schultz in my district.
Gonna say South Florida also has a very diverse Jewish community, bilingual Jewish messaging going out.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jubins down here. I think this is a future. California, I would have thought, but everyone's moving from California as well. And California and New York currently are on the same boat. Where else?
Right.
Chicago? I don't think so. Texas? It's too boring there. South Florida is the place to be.
So you made a couple controversial statements on video regarding the Proud Boys recently.
Mm-hmm.
I was tagged in a post on Facebook. You spoke positively about them, saying that you could possibly see a future where you would be affiliated with them. Did you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'm not an official Proud Boy now, but I do hang out with the Proud Boys and I support what they do. As a matter of fact, the head of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, is Afro-Cuban. It's not white supremacist. I guess someone could say, okay, blacks also fought for the South, right? But any effort made by the right in any arena, the left is going to declare them fascist, racist, homophobic, Islamophobic. We really have to stop caring about the labels that get pinned on us and just do what we think it's right. The right is not racist. Now, do racists exist? Of course, racists exist. I really don't know any racists. As a matter of fact, I mean, the real racists are those on the left, those who want to have segregated dorms, segregated graduation ceremonies for colleges, those who think that an African American is not capable of bringing ID to a polling station. I think that's just derogatory and for many, many different reasons, but I don't see the right doing that. It seems like they treat everyone equally, that we push for America to ultimately be a meritocracy. You try hard and you reap the rewards of your efforts. That's it. But the left has this policy that because you exist as a woman, as a minority, as an immigrant, you deserve. Now, that's an ideology only pushed traditionally by the founders of social democracy, what ultimately became known as communism, that has failed in virtually every society it's been tried, whether it's Venezuela, Cambodia, North Korea, the Soviet Union. All they do is leave a trail of blood and carnage.
What do you say to people, like to people of color who say that my concerns as being the descendant of slaves or the child of redlining or the first generation in my family to have voting rights or things like that? How do you see the right wing as addressing those concerns from people having grown up in disparate school systems, people having grown up in disparate housing, people having grown up in disparate areas, to which
Right.
The left says give more social programs? But how do you see the right as answering that?
So the right wants to give people more power. The left wants to give government more power. It's the right pushing for school vouchers. In terms of redlining, where people were basically forced to be in a certain part of town and they weren't able to get out of, even today, to get out of the ghetto or to put their kids in better schools, that's the left that has married the teachers union and strips people from free choice of where you want your kids to go to school. This is a right-wing argument. Don't forget, the Democrats were party for slavery, the Dixiecrats. It was the Republicans that freed the slave. I'm not convinced of this great switch that supposedly took place. The Republicans were
60s and all of that.
There's people like Dinesh D'Souza who made a whole video on it, how that is actually not true, that the Democrats are just as racist as they were back then. Clearly, we've moved forward. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, we've come a long way. And I don't think Republicans make the statement that America has no racists. Every society has people who behave inappropriately, but I'm not convinced that America is systemically racist in any way. As a matter of fact, when you have a society that 60% of all the murders are performed by 16% of the population, it seems that those in the majority are turning a blind eye to those in the minority. It seems like they're giving them leeway. I don't see the oppression.
Now, do you see the Proud Boys as an anti-racist organization then?
Absolutely. The Proud Boys are a reactionary movement. They arose initially to protect speakers in college campuses. At Trump rallies, these people were getting beat up by Antifa. They were getting hit by skateboards and this and that. So as a reactionary effort, they banded together to protect the innocent. And I've never heard them say anything racist. I mean, have you?
Individual Proud Boys have been quoted as saying lots of things, but then again, so have individual quote unquote Black Lives Matter leaders. What one individual says and what an organization stands for can often be two different things. But do you see the organizations that came together at rallies like Unite the Right, organizations that come together at Trump rallies, do you see these organizations as contributing to unity?
For sure. I see a mixture of people at Trump rallies. Clearly, there's more white than black, just because right now, blacks, I think 95% of blacks vote Democrat just because of, in my opinion, incentives. But there are many people like Candace Owens, Thomas Sowell, Larry Elder. It seems that there's a movement that's growing called Blexit, blacks exiting the Democratic Party. Numbers like that of blacks exiting the Democratic Party have never been seen till Trump. Now it seems like they're taking Trump at his word. He said, you know what? You've been with the Democrats for so long. What do you have to lose? Give us a try. We have Kanye West. Ice Cube came out also as Republican. There's
How do you feel about Ice Cube and his contract with Black America that he says that Trump's economic policies are changing to reflect.
Now, he himself is religious as well. I think he's a religious Muslim. It really has to do with people who submit themselves to a higher power. Kanye West, it's not a coincidence that right when he started professing loyalty or support for the Republican Party, he also came out as a born-again Christian. Justin Bieber as well is now, I mean, he's Canadian, but he also now leans to the right. It seems that that's where the great divide is. People who believe in biblical values. And yes, this is a war between the best being the enemy of the better. The Republican Party is not perfect, but it's the best thing we have to move us forward. While it seems that the Democratic Party is pushing to defund the police, the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm pretty sure no one on the right is against the concept of Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's obvious, but they're against the Marxist organization that hides behind those three words. The left has been using groups since its inception, just like the early communists used workers. The modern day leftists use women, minorities, blacks to further their agenda, but ultimately they care about no one. But this Marxist concept that appears in Das Kapital, that everything that exists deserves to die. It's this nihilistic approach that I think stems from an irreligious soul. It's either utopia or nothing. It seems that the Republican Party, as it is today, is the pragmatic party. That we acknowledge that things aren't perfect, but just like in Judaism, we thank God for things the way they are, but we ask him for things as they should be. But it's about evolution, not revolution. It's little steps.
So in this respect, do you see that the movement forward trying to reach across the aisle or bridge right and left is going to be a movement more of outreach from the right to the left?
No. I think the left and the right have irreconcilable differences. There's no meeting in the middle.
Across the aisle at this point?
No, not at all. I think the left wants to destroy this country. There's a difference between being liberal and being on the left. I think liberals do love America, and I think that we could work with liberals. I actually see Biden as a liberal.
The moderates, the center left.
Right. Okay. Alan Dershowitz. There are many liberals that people on the right could work with, but they can't work with leftists. with the Kamala Harrises or the Bernie Sanders.
You see no area for compromise there, no area for reconciliation, no common ground, let's
But
say.
they don't see it either. How can you try to unite with someone whose goal is ultimately to destroy the capitalistic society you've created? They think capitalism is wrong. I mean, Bernie Sanders, he took his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. I don't see how either side could coexist in society. And we see it nowadays. We don't see the right burning down communities and trying to defund the police. It's only the left. How can you compromise on that?
Well, those who advocate for defunding police would say that they only want to see funding going towards other community programs.
Okay.
Not that money would just not, and very few people want to see the abolition of police. It's that money should be diverted to other programs.
So the result will be less police in places that actually need more police. I think there was a poll taken that the average Black wants more police in their communities. They'll lie to you if they tell you that they're more scared of the policeman than the drug dealer who lives across the street. But that's how the media makes it seem. I think that it's time for people to rethink this issue.
Okay, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for this.